Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Bahasham, Barakahakodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and in this video, I'll be profiling a clip from Wyon's YouTube channel titled Gravitas, Turkey Taking Advantage of War in Ukraine, ? And as we'll see in this video, Turkey is trying to play both sides of the fence in regards to the Ukrainian crisis. They don't want to go against NATO and the US in regards to Russia, and they also don't want to push away Russia because they're a close ally of Turkey. But regardless of all that, the premise of this video is to show that ultimately Turkey will turn against the West, more specifically the United States of America, and ally themselves with Russia during World War III. And it's all a part of biblical prophecy. But let's play this clip.
Also thinking about itself and serving its own interest is Turkey. The war in Ukraine was bad news for Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. If he backs Ukraine, he could lose a key ally and a weapons market. If he backs Russia, he'll turn the entire NATO against him. So Turkey has decided to turn this crisis into an opportunity to try and mediate in this conflict. Here's a report.
Erdogan hasn't had the best time in Ukraine. In 2017, he visited Kiev and met with Petro Poroshenko, the then Ukrainian president. Both leaders appeared for a press conference. At this crucial moment, Erdogan fell asleep. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. That embarrassing moment 5 years ago hasn't stopped Erdogan from taking on a challenge. The Turkish president wants to mediate in the Ukraine crisis. It's a noble cause, also a tricky balancing act that Erdogan is trying to accomplish in public. When Ukraine was attacked, Erdogan said the invasion was unjustified.
Turkey supports Ukraine's battle to protect its territorial integrity.
But when Russia was sanctioned, the Turkish president condemned what he called the witch hunting of Russia.
We do not accept witch hunt practices against the Russian people, Russian literature, Russian students and artists.
The Turkish president is caught in a bind. He cannot antagonize Russia. At the same time, he cannot go against his allies in NATO. So Erdogan is trying to play both sides by bringing them to the negotiating table. Turkey wants to dictate the outcome of this war, and for good reason. Erdogan doesn't want to be forced to choose sides under any circumstances. There are two issues.
But Turkey and Erdogan have no choice. It's all through the will of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai for them to fulfill biblical prophecy and ultimately side with Russia.
That bothered Turkey. Problem number one is Ukraine's bid for a NATO membership. If Ukraine joins NATO, Turkey will be forced to come to its defense. If NATO chooses to back Ukraine militarily, Turkey will have to comply again. In both situations, Turkey will be forced to fight its friend, Russia. This is an outcome that Erdogan wants to avoid. Problem number two is the Montreux Convention of 1936. It's a treaty that gives Turkey the control over passage of warships in the Black Sea. In the event of a war, Turkey can block the passage of Russian warships. Once again, Erdogan doesn't want to make that choice, because it could get dragged into the war. So, before the conflict spills over, Turkey has stepped in to mediate. It hosted the foreign ministers of Ukraine and Russia yesterday. Erdogan is also pursuing a détente with Israel. The Turkish president hosted his Israeli counterpart in Ankara. Both leaders used the occasion to discuss the situation in Ukraine. Even the White House is consulting with Erdogan. He had a phone call with US President Joe Biden. The Turkish president is keen to work with the United States again. He wants American sanctions to be lifted. It's been quite a turnaround for Erdogan. Until a few weeks ago, Turkey was sanctioned and grey-listed for terror sponsorship. Struggling with a failing economy, now it's a mediator in the biggest political and military crisis in Europe, and is talking to Arabs and Israelis. It's a big opportunity for Erdogan. A truce in Ukraine would boost his prospects both at home and abroad. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
So as you can see, Turkey is playing a very delicate balancing act with not wanting to upset its allies in the West, in NATO, in the US, and not wanting to upset its allies in the East with Russia. But again, biblical prophecy will be fulfilled. As it says in Proverbs chapter 21, the king's heart or mind is in the hand of the Most High, and he moveth it whithersoever he will. When the time comes during World War III, Turkey will turn against the U.S. and ally themselves with Russia completely. Now let's get into these prophecies. This is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1. I'm going to start at verse 1, and the headline reads, Edom will be humbled, and the biblical Edomites are known as the so-called white people today. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 7, which is more specifically dealing with the United States of America, an Edomite nation, and how her allies are going to turn against her. All the men of thy confederacy, or your allies, have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. And what did we just see in that clip from Wyon's YouTube channel? Turkey is in talks with the United States of America over the Ukrainian war situation. They're trying to seek sanctions relief from the U.S. and continue to do business with the West. But they're ultimately going to deceive and prevail against the West, more specifically the U.S., and ally themselves with Russia during World War III. And another example of Turkey deceiving the United States of America was during the Syrian Civil War. You had the U.S. going against Bashar al-Assad, while you had Russia on the side of Bashar al-Assad. And Turkey came into the Syrian Civil War on the side of the U.S., but they deceived them because they did it ultimately to carve out some territory in northern Syria for themselves. They were still allies with Russia during the Syrian Civil War and did talks with Russia and Iran to deal with the Syrian Civil War. And then also, Turkey has received the S-400 anti-missile defense systems from Russia, and they've also been doing business deals with Russia, where Russia has built a nuclear reactor facility in Turkey. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. And that bread can go into stuff like sanctions relief, business deals with the West, you name it. But ultimately, as it says, they have laid a wound under thee. When everything's said and done, Turkey will cut ties with the West and the U.S. and ally themselves with Russia. And now I'm going to go into Ezekiel chapter 38 to further expound upon this point, because you may have some people out there that say, well, look, that Obadiah 1 and 7 doesn't specifically say Turkey. Well, it will say Turkey in Ezekiel chapter 38, as well as Russia. This is Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, which is the biblical name for Russia, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. And that's the Most High putting that old Soviet Union spirit back onto these Russian Edomites. And we're seeing a clear example of that with Russia invading Ukraine. And then also over the past couple of years, you've had Russia build back up its military and economic ties with countries all across the planet. Russia has been doing military and economic deals with Sudan. Russia has built back up one of its military ports in Syria. Russia has been building up its military assets in that Arctic Ocean region. Russia is an ally with Turkey and again has sold them the S-400 anti-missile defense systems, as well as helped Turkey build a nuclear reactor in their country. The list goes on. And I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Russia's military hardware, soldiers, tanks, fighter jets, helicopters, artillery pieces, etc., etc. And we've seen examples of this with the Syrian civil war, where they brought their forces in to help Bashar al-Assad. We're seeing an example right now with Russian forces in Ukraine. But this is ultimately talking about Russia being gathered down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat, or that Middle Eastern region, for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the real World War III. Verse 5, Persia, which is the ancient name for Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, and Gomer is speaking of Turkey. Real quick, here's a book titled The Israelites by B.S.J. Iserlin, and it's a really good book that goes into some of our customs Akim from the past. And I'm gonna go to page 22 and 23. Just give me a second, Akim. I'm holding the camera with one hand and going to this with the other. Try to get it. As you can see, here's a map of the Mediterranean. You've got Italy right there. You got the Black Sea right there. And you've got the landmass of Turkey right here, if it can focus. Trying to get it. And what do you see in Turkey? Gomer. Just give you a big image right there. And now I'm gonna go to a modern day map. You have the Mediterranean, Italy, the Black Sea, and what? Turkey, Gomer. Gomer, or Turkey, and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, speaking of Russia or Gog, thou and all thy company, thy confederacy, or thy allies that are assembled unto thee, Persia or Iran, Gomer and Turkey, and be thou a guard unto them. So as we see in Ezekiel chapter 38, Turkey or Gomer will ultimately be an ally of Russia or Gog and be on their side during this upcoming World War III, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon. Again, they're going to deceive the United States of America, turn against them, prevail against them, and lay that wound under them. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.